Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Randall Herrera, and yesterday, for the first time in quite a few months, I was able to get out and have a portrait session. Unfortunately, for myself, it's just been a while since I've been able to do that, and it's something I love doing, but sometimes, life gets in the way. Anyways, I just want to share my experience that I had with the Fringer adapter on the XT2. I use mostly the 18 to 35 F1.8 Sigma Art lens, and I did also use the Canon 50mm F1.4. That's their oldest of the 50mm lenses that they've had. In any case, with mirrorless cameras, one of the beautiful things that you always hear about it is how you can adapt all these lenses. I know I first started with the Panasonic Lumix GX8, and one of the first things I did was buy a Metabones adapter, and I was able to adapt all my Canon lenses. I started off with Canon, so I've always had Canon lenses. When I bought the Sony, the same thing. And one of the first things that I did was buy an adapter so I could use my Canon lenses. When I got into Fuji, I just assumed that like everybody else, they had an adapter for Canon lenses. And don't get me wrong, you can adapt. There are adapters like this one. I think this is a K&F concept, adapter. But I looked for, the full, the smart adapters, and there were none at that time for Canon lenses, so I couldn't adapt my 35 1.4 L lens. It's an awesome lens. I love that lens. I couldn't adapt it. I mean, I could use this adapter on it and I could get it to work, but it was stuck at wide open 1.4 always, which is a great place to be shooting the 35 millimeter lens. But sometimes you don't want to shoot it at 1.4, especially when you're doing group pictures where there's multiple layers of people, and you don't want to be at 1.4. Sometimes during landscapes, that kind of thing, cityscapes, you don't want to be at 1.4, and so that you couldn't really use the lens to its fullest potential. I did use, like I said, this K&F concept lens. I did buy this broken on lens specifically for that 85mm 1.4 to get some nice kind of bokeh, for portraits and that kind of thing. I also have this other adapter I bought, same K&F concept. This is for Pentax lenses. I have a Pentax film camera, K1000, so you can use these old vintage lenses, and you get, just to have a different look. They're not the sharpest lenses, but they give you kind of a different look, and all that was fun. But I really missed out on being able to use my Canon lenses. Luckily, Fringer came out with this adapter. I've been waiting for them to release this, and I've had this adapter for a while. Actually, I just never got around to using it. I've been kind of going through a slow time with my photography, just because life gets in the way, like I said. So the 18 to 35 lens is a lens that I always wanted to really use with the Fuji cameras, because to me it's like one of the best lenses made for APS-C systems. Now I will warn you, if you don't have this lens, I will warn you, it's heavy. It's not, it's a heavy lens. So if you're one of those people that went to Fuji or mirrorless because small and light, then this is definitely not the setup for you. But I've had this lens for, when I had my Canon 80D and T4i. I also had the 50 to 100mm Art lens. They're great lenses, best lenses for APS-C if you ask me, in terms of image quality, zoom lenses, right? So basically it gives you as close as you possibly can get to doing, like the 18 to 35 will give you as close as you can possibly get to doing a full frame 24 to 70 2.8. That look that it'll give you, the shallow depth of field, just like the 50 to 100mm f1.8 Sigma lens will give you as close as possible on an APS-C to what a 70 to 200 2.8 will give you on a full frame in terms of the look, the shallow depth of field. Don't get me wrong, they're equivalent, I know, in terms of the 2.8 and just how much light you're getting onto the sensor. But in terms of the look, the shallow depth of field, subject isolation, that kind of thing, it's as close as you're gonna get. The 60 to 55 Fuji lens is a 2.8, but in terms of depth of field, I believe it's more like an f4. My math might be a little bit off there, but more or less like an f4. So you're not getting that depth of field. Now, if that doesn't matter to you, then it doesn't matter to you. I mean, everybody's different, so I'm not gonna, I can't tell you if it should matter to you or it shouldn't matter to me. It doesn't always matter to me, but sometimes it does. If I'm going for a shallow depth of field look, but I want a zoom lens. Sometimes during portrait sessions, it is nice to have a zoom lens. You don't always have the space to be moving in and out with a prime lens. In any case, again, this is more of a first impressions kind of video, but the first impressions is the autofocus is not 100% reliable. It'll get you in the ballpark most of the time. Sometimes when it nails, it's like super sharp, and then you get to see the best of this lens. Is one of the probably the sharpest lens for an APS-C camera. If it nails, it's great. You get to see the best of this lens on the Fuji XT2 finally, and I get to have full aperture control. However, the problem is that I find that probably about 40% of the time it does not quite get it. You know, if your model is standing, let's say this way, you're focusing on the eye, but this, you know, here will come out in focus, or the front shoulder will be sharp and the face is not quite as sharp. So for casual use, definitely I would recommend it, no problem, you know, whatever. If you're doing a professional photo session, for example, I still plan on using it. Matter of fact, I think I'm gonna get the 50 to 100 art lens again. I had it in the past, but I had it on the Canon 80D, and I had so many front focusing and back focusing issues that I ended up selling it. So you might be asking, well, if it's having focusing issues here, what's the difference there, you know, with the 80D? Well, with the 80D, you couldn't really quickly manually focus, not precisely enough. Whereas with the Fuji XT2 or many other mirrorless cameras, you can do, you know, you can get the autofocus to kind of get you in the ballpark. Then you can quickly, with the hit of a button, punch into the eye and adjust your focusing just that little bit extra that's needed. For portrait sessions, that could work. And I think it's going to work for me. It's a lens that I think is definitely on my radar to purchase again. For events, I don't think I would suggest it. Not especially if you want to shoot wide open, and you know you're relying on the autofocus, just because you know things are happening so fast. You're doing somebody's wedding. You really want to sit. I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, you know, it's just I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to be under that pressure, risking somebody's memories, events that can't, you know, situations that can't happen again, in somebody's important, you know, birthday party or wedding kiss or whatever, and you know you can't ask people to do certain things again. It just doesn't look right. But yeah, so far the first experience has been good. The 50mm with the Fringer, the Canon 50mm 1.4, no good. Not for autofocus. I mean, I still use it and I manually focus and I was able to control my aperture, and that's great. But in terms of autofocus, it's like, if this is, that was just like, it just doesn't work. I mean, you know, it's not even worth trying. I'm not saying you can't use it and be happy with it, but forget about the autofocus. But then again, that lens autofocus fails on Canon cameras. So, you know, it's a great lens for its price on a Canon camera, but I wouldn't get it just for this purpose. I would, if you want to adapt for some reason, I would say get the 51.8 lens. So that's about it for this video. I'm going to show you guys some pictures now of the portrait session that I had. I am going to be doing more portrait sessions with this setup. Also the 35mm 1.4, I'm wondering if that's going to do a little bit better in terms of autofocus precision. I'm hoping it does, because that's another lens that would be great to have, you know, great to continue to use with the Fuji XT2 and not have to constantly manually check if I'm in focus. But yeah, so to sum it up, like I said, for portraits, it's workable. You know, it works. You just have to, I would definitely say, kind of, you will need to kind of check your focus. Again, that's with this lens specifically. I don't know yet how it works with my other Canon lenses. The 35mm f1.4 Mark II is the next lens I want to try out on my next portrait session. You know, again, I can test it around here all day shooting things, but it's just, I find that results are always a little bit different when you're sitting here aiming at your vacuum cleaner and then at your sofa and then at the cat, and yet it's different when all of a sudden you've got lights going on and a model that's waiting for you to take a photo. For some reason, things just know that you're under pressure, and all of a sudden that's when they want to start failing. So there's, you know, it's like real life, real world use is what I want to test it under. Around the house so far, the 35mm f1.4 Mark II has been acting very well, but you know, like I said, I want to take it for some real world tests there. Anyways, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoy the pictures, and I'll see you guys next time.